Have you seen like a big squishy pink lump anywhere?
Yeah. I saw it in the kitchen.
Oh, thank fuck.
Is that like a blancmange you made with like a specially shaped mould?
No. That's my spare brain.
Oh.
You know they've been doing the thing with like brain organelles and all that, and you can like grow bits.
Yeah, they've been making tiny little brains to put in computers.
Yeah,
a thing that
but
terrifies me. Yeah.
I was like, what if I grow like a whole-size brain
okay.
that I have a spare, but like it's been like jiggery poked with,
Okay.
and it doesn't have the ADHD or the dopamine deficiency.
Okay.
So I use that one for like thinking and stuff and getting shit done, and the other one for fun and profit.
This feels like it reminds me of a film we saw the other week. Do you have to swap them every week?
No, just when I want to do a big think, I use the mostly functional brain, and then the other time I use my regular ordinary brain.
Huh.
But I do keep misplacing it because
Yeah, I was gonna
ADHD.
say
What were we talking about?
something about a film, I think.
Oh, yeah, I could watch a film. Greetings, strangers, queer and pleasant. I'm not Laura Kate Magnet Dale.
And I'm not Jane Aerith Magnet Dale, and welcome to another episode of Queer and Pleasant Strangers. It's a podcast with two queer trans women. That's us.
And our cat.
And our cat, Smudge, is here today. But that's us. We're the wifey types. We talk about media we've consumed in the week and do silly voices and skits to try and amuse ourselves.
That is the plan.
How are you doing?
I'm a sleepy little bean.
Yeah.
I'm filled with sleepitude.
Same. This
Had
week,
a long weekend and then just haven't managed to catch up.
This week has been a sleepy week. It's been difficult getting the motor going this week a little bit, but we're here and we've done stuff.
We're queer.
Yeah, we are. Some of the stuff we've done this week is playing things.
Yeah.
Should we talk about some stuff we played this week?
We should. You have played the most things, so I think you should start.
Well, I've played two things that kind of spiraled into being a lot of things.
Yes.
So I'm going to start with the thing that's a lot of things.
Yes.
I started playing UFO 50 today.
This is 50 games in one.
Yeah, so this is a game that is currently just on Steam that is a collection of 50 pixel art indie games made by different developers, all loosely themed to the idea of UFOs somehow being connected to these games, that are all games by a fictional video game development company called UFO Soft, for a console that very much seems like it's a ZX Spectrum or something of that era.
Yeah, that old 8-bit style.
Yeah, and the idea is that this is a collection of, like, pretty fully featured individual little games for a fictional games console that all have their, like, fictional little blurbs of what year they came out in and what, like, the very quick equivalent of, like, the back of the box text you would read for them. But they come without, like, instruction manuals that would, like, properly explain to you how to play the game. You've kind of got to sometimes jump into them and just work it out as you go.
Yeah.
And it's just a collection of games, some of which are like sequels to other games in the collection. So you might be like, oh, that character from that game is in this one. Oh, this is a sequel to that one from Pretend 3 years ago. And it is a fascinating little collection of games. As is the case with, I think, any kind of anthology project, not every one of them's going to be a 10 out of 10 hit. Like, not every one of them has instantly grabbed me playing around with it today. Right. And maybe I just need to give some of them some more time. Some of them are a little harder to work out, like, what is it you want from a game, or to get to really click with. But there's already a handful of games on this first pass through where I'm like, these are really interesting, and I'm not going to talk about all of them, but I want to talk about like a handful of ones in sort of rapid fire that I thought were interesting.
Yes.
Paint Chase is kind of like Pac-Man meets Splatoon.
Okay.
In that it is a top-down map where you are trying to, at the end of a time limit, have painted more of this Pac-Man style map, your paint colour, than the enemy paint colour.
Right.
You're a little car driving around, in your 4 cardinal directions, leaving paint behind you, and there's 4 other cars driving around, and if you, like, crash into them, you destroy them, sort of like eating the ghosts, to briefly stop them painting the floor.
Right.
And you're trying to, like, paint over the paint they've drawn. And there's little power-ups you can get, and, like, boost tracks where if, like, you pass a certain bit of the map going the right direction, you get a boost of speed for a bit so you can paint more quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And when the timer runs out, you have to have painted more than 50% of the floor your colour at that moment.
Okay.
Really addictive, easy to jump into, fun little concept.
Yeah.
Magic Garden is, what if you were playing Snake, but there were occasionally, like, portions of the map that had stars on them, and you had to drop off the things you'd been picking up that were sort of trailing behind you, like in Snake. You had to drop them off on those locations by heading there and manually dropping them off while, like, the tail of the snake essentially is over the highlighted segment.
Right.
And as the map goes on for longer, things that you can't collect will start popping up and basically being more hazards, and the drop-off location sort of hops around the board, either randomly over time or when you do a drop-off, it'll hop somewhere else. And you're trying to, like, play Snake but drop off the little fuzzy things you collect as you go. Mortal is a side-scrolling platformer where you drop into a level with, like, let's say it's 20 lives or whatever, and you have, like, a small handful of abilities you can use that will help you progress in future runs, but will use up a life. So things like, you can fire yourself sideways like an arrow, and if you stick into a wall, that's now a platform you could use to jump up somewhere higher. You can turn into stone, which might help you get over a dangerous gap full of spikes. You could turn one of yourselves to stone and, like, use it as a platform to jump across. You can explode to destroy a wall, but that's going to use up one of your lives. So it's a combination of trying not to die to the various enemies that are around, and strategically use your lives to make it easier for your next attempt to get to the end of that stage.
Okay.
Velgress is a game where you're in some really deep prison tower, and you're trying to jump all the way up to to freedom. It is a basic, like, jump up and shoot on, jump up through platforms and shoot enemies, while, like, a rolling wall of spikes is slowly raising behind you. So it is move quickly, lots of the platforms will fall, will dissolve if you stand on them too long. Sometimes you'll have to, like, shoot platforms from above you to make a gap to jump further up. And you're just trying to see how many floors up you can get in this sort of high score chasing. I'm going to keep going through these. I've not got too many, but there's a good number of interesting ones. A Tactics is a game where you have, like, 5 horizontal lanes.
Right.
And you are trying to get your army units to reach the other side of the screen where the enemy castle is. And if you can do that 5 times, if you get 5 units that touch the other side of the screen, you win a level. But there's army units coming towards you from the other side. So you're trying to... all the control you really have is you select which units you're going to have in your little army. They'll randomly spawn out of your castle in these different lanes. You can move them up or down lanes, so you can change which lane your units are in. Like, some of them are melee attackers, some attack at range because they're archers or whatever. But you're trying to work out how many units do I commit to a lane to stop the incoming enemy wave versus how many do I send to underprotected lanes to try and get damage on the enemy castle.
So it's a bit like Falcondo.
Yeah, a little bit. It's that kind of vibe. Nice simplified one of those.
I get you.
Devilition is really interesting. You have, like, a grid-based map where there's a couple of humans that you're trying to protect and several, like, red cartoonish devil demons. And you need to protect these humans by killing all of these demons via kind of an elaborate puzzle, which is you have all these different kinds of creatures you can summon onto the map, and each of them will connect to different other spots on the map. So, like, let's say you put a little goblin down, and, like, up, down, left, and right of it are spaces that it activates. You're basically trying to create a chain of creatures that when you detonate one, will explode another you set, and explode another you set in a chain reaction that will kill all the devils.
Okay.
So you're trying to, like, set these various patterns up so that they will, ideally, take out some of these devils you're trying to defeat, but also activate a different square that you've also put a creature on.
Uh-huh.
So you're trying to, go, okay, well, this is going to attack these 4 positions, that one's going to hit a devil, that one will hit there, so I'll put another creature in the other spot that it's hitting, that'll hopefully hit another devil, and trying to create this, intricate chain reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But once you've placed one of these units, it doesn't show you where it impacts anymore, so you have to keep in mind, you have to remember which was the first one I placed down that is the start of my chain, which places did the one I just placed, can it impact, so that I remember where I have to place this next one. It's an interesting challenge. I'm finding it real curious.
It feels like it's going to be very difficult with that Fantasia.
Indeed. The way I've been dealing with it is I have my current unit ready to place down, and I can see where it will impact, and I look at a square in advance and go, I'm going to keep an eye on that square. That square, I'm looking at that square. That square's where I'm putting my next unit. Whatever my next unit is, it's going to go. It's going to go there, and have a pre-planned spot.
Yeah,
it's an interesting one. There's a game called Bushido that is, what if you played Pong, but instead of having paddles, you were little ninjas that had super attacks you could occasionally use. It's kind of like that Windjammers, the sort of sports frisbee Pong game. Block Koala, a game where you've broken into a zoo and you're trying to push these blocks to get a star onto a star block onto a space with a star on it. By pushing other blocks around to get out the way. But the interesting thing is all the blocks are numbered, and you can push certain numbers of blocks into others to combine them so that there's fewer blocks now.
Okay.
And the numbers of the blocks change priority of if there's a 2 with a 3 behind it, you can't push it, but if there's a 3 with a 2 behind it, because you're pushing the larger one, you can push it, and all these interesting rules that sort of dictate how you can navigate pushing these blocks around to clear your path.
Okay.
Last couple I'll mention for today, The Big Bell Race is a side-on perspective, very basic racing game, where you are little UFOs flying around these various racetrack courses.
Finally, some UFOs in this UFO game.
Most of these had UFOs somewhere in them. Where the UFOs are is more or less obvious depending on which ones we're talking about. But it is a game in which your primary controls are just feathering the button of how much your UFO will stay in the air versus how much it's tilted. To sort of do its angle as it floats around the course.
Okay.
Fist Hell, I think, is the last one I'm going to talk about today. It's just a fun side-scrolling beat-em-up game. It's just a cool side-scrolling beat-em-up that was pretty fun.
Nice.
Lots of beaten-up zombies. The art style was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, UFO 50 is an interesting collection of things, and there's a bunch of games in there that I will definitely dig into more. Several of them are games that have 2-player co-op options, or versus multiplayer. There seems to be a robust amount of interesting little game stuff to play around with. So yeah, I've been playing UFO 50, and it's pretty neat.
And would you say at this point you reckon you've got your 21 quid worth out of it?
I feel like I've barely scratched the surface at this point, honestly. Most of these, I played for a few minutes and went, cool, let's have a I just wanted to have a sense of what was in there today, but there's a lot of stuff to dig into.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? What have you been playing this week?
Well, we played some board games.
We did.
We played some Deep Rock Galactic, the board game. This time in 4-player. So we played a bunch in 2-player. I've played all 4 dwarves in solo. But this is your first time playing 4-player. We've talked about Deep Rock Galactic, the board game, before. It is based on the video game with the same name. And you are a bunch of dwarves going and doing various missions, either collecting resources or killing specific enemies. And there's 4 different classes, and they all do slightly different things, but ultimately you are trying to work together to achieve the common goal of return to base.
Yeah.
There's some nice randomness in it about how various parts, even though the base of the map is predetermined, you'll very often have hidden caves, and you'll also have randomly positioned items that just show up as question marks. And it's what could this be? You don't know necessarily. What did you think in 4-player?
I thought it was pretty good in 4-player. It balanced pretty nicely.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely had more tools available in the toolbox.
Yes.
Having all 4 people meant, like, for example, in a mission that required checking a lot of caves off to the side of things, our driller could pretty much, like, stick to the thing that they're designed for in doing lots of drilling. It meant that you didn't have to quite so much pull yourself away from your intended role to also be doing other things.
Yes.
What did you think?
I think it was really interesting how we were a bit more careful about sticking together, because the understanding that it's going to be a really long time before it gets back to you, so you don't want to put yourself, like, finish your turn in danger and be like, oh yeah, it'll get back to me, because there might be 4 or more attacks before it does get back to you. I thought that was quite interesting. It was, as you say, nice that people were able to specialise. Like, I was playing Scout for both games, and it was, just like nipping around the board as much as possible. Lots of little, helping out bits. I used my flares a couple of times to make sure other people had advantage on shots, which was pretty handy, I think.
Yeah.
And, our gunner was regularly just, completely drained of ammo. It's like, okay, now we need to all go and get more nitra so that we can make sure that our gunner can do lots of shooting again. Mm-hmm. But, it was nice to try it with new people, and, really easy to teach. Like, they got it before the end of the first game, and then we did, 2 games the next day and managed to, really bang it out pretty well.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. I do enjoy playing it, and I still enjoy playing it at 4. But I'm surprised that it does balance as well when it's such a difference in board state when it comes back to you.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being like, oh yeah, it'll be fine. It'll come back to me. It'll be absolutely fine. And it largely was, but still a big danger of have to be careful not to disappear off round a corner or into miles away where I can't be protected from being knocked over or grabbed or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you? What else have you played?
I've started playing through a really interesting game. This is the new game from the Persona dev team at Atlas, Metaphor Fantazio, which how to talk about this game. So I'm a fan usually of Atlas's games. I'm a big fan of the Persona series, but usually recommending a Persona game comes with 2 caveats. One, the pacing isn't gonna be for everyone, because it is an RPG series where in between the main plot is happening and the turn-based battles and all of your big flashy narrative stuff, there will be lengthy periods of, hey, you're just being a student at school, doing your daily life, doing micromanaging, hoping you don't make the wrong choices of how to spend your days for optimal building of social links and whatever. And that is definitely not for everyone. And B, they have a bit of a history of having slightly iffy LGBT content cropping up. Nothing major, but enough that it's you just had to slip up in an awkward way that I kind of have to caveat now. The thing that made me interested in initially in checking this out, because I was like, it's an Atlas RPG. I'll check it out at some point, and I'm sure I'll have a good time with it. And then reviews came out. The first thing that I saw was a queer game critic who was like, hey, this feels like an entirely different Atlas made this, in that not only was there no, weird LGBT moment I have to apologize for, it is a game that is explicitly about the fight for freeing people from oppression that feels written with a real eye to understanding of current modern real world oppression dynamics. I was like, okay, that's a positive sign. And then I started reading a couple more reviews, and this was the thing that had me like, okay, I might need to prioritize checking this out. It is a game set in a world that is currently undergoing an election, or a someone new being put into political power, and the thing that we are trying to prevent is very explicitly someone who is using fear-mongering against minorities and the idea that we need to have a stronger military and policing force is the only way to deal with all those scary minorities, as a primary platform for, you should be terrified of all those minorities, put me in power and I'll deal with that problem. Which is like, okay, I can see how that feels pretty modern and relevant. But it is explicitly a game about... How do I put this? You know when we watched Andor a while ago?
Yes.
We were like, this is a great piece of fiction about the fight against oppression. But the thing with, like, a good piece of media like that is that what it can do is make you feel less bad about the shitty nature of the world in the moment, while media about fighting oppression that doesn't push you to do something proactive about fighting oppression yourself is, like, that's a whole, like, thing to unpack. Yeah, this is a whole story explicitly about the fact that, like, stories about fighting oppression can be inspirational, but that unless you are able to turn that feeling of inspiration and hope into people proactively fighting for that kind of world, it doesn't really mean much. And the importance of, like, not just idealistically saying, this is the ideal world I would love to see, but the importance of the fight for understanding the steps that will get us there and not just finding comfort in seeing stories in which it gets better. And I'm like, that's really fucking interesting.
Yeah.
I'm very, very curious about that. Having started playing it, that much is already very clearly true. It's been sort of implied in the first couple of hours that, like, the previous king of this realm was a big lover of fiction stories about utopian futures. Stories about, like, there is a story that frequently comes up in these first couple of hours that is a book about, like, a future utopian world where everyone sees themselves as one race. They don't see differences between each other, and everyone is united, and that this, general sense of unity and oneness brings about a utopian future. But that it seems that the king didn't really do anything during his reign to actually get from where the country was to that.
Right.
It was... He is the kind of king who will say, we should see less differences between each other and be better to each other and make a better world, but not the kind of king who was doing anything to proactively fight against the growing rhetoric of bigotry that was growing within his land, outside of just saying we should all love each other. And I'm like, okay, I'm on board, I'm intrigued. Mechanically, definitely feels a lot more to the point and focused than Persona. It doesn't have the, here are your off days, what are you doing with them system.
Right.
It feels like it is very much, go, we've got a plot to do. I imagine at some point there will be some branching of some free time. There are points on my calendar where certain things are happening. But it does feel a lot more, we've got a plot to do, we're gonna move on with it. And that's... I'm not opposed to that in Persona, but I'm enjoying the change of pace. There's some little changes to the combat system, the main ones being, there is now a front and back row of combat where you can, at any time on a character's turn, move them either into the front row where they deal more damage but will take more damage, or onto the back row where they deal less melee damage but take less damage from attacks.
But good for ranged combat?
Yeah, good for ranged combat. You will sometimes see enemies, like, specifically targeting a particular character or an area of effect attack that's going to hit the front row or the back row, and you can sort of plan around that. Much like Persona, there is a system where if you hit an enemy with its elemental weakness, you will get to do extra attacks in your turn. In Persona, you could essentially, if you were lucky, have, like, infinite length turns. There was no real cap on how many times you could get extra actions by doing something that caused status weakness. Here, there is a limit. The way that it works is, let's say you've got 3 characters in your party, at least as I'm currently playing it, you'll get 3 actions in your turn.
Right.
But let's say one of my characters did an attack that hit an elemental weakness, it would only use up half an action. And another character could use the other half of that action to do something else.
Right.
So you could essentially double the number of actions in your turn if each time you're on, like, a new action use, you use the first half of it to do something elementally effective.
Okay.
You essentially get the second half for free.
Okay.
Really liking the characters. They're very endearing so far. Yeah, it is much like many of Atlas's games. It is stylistically gorgeous. They know how to do visual flair very well. And
How's the UI?
Oh, that UI is fucking gorgeous. Again, like a Persona, they know how to have a UI that feels like they spent about 20 times more on it than they needed to.
Right.
It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, no one needs a UI this elaborate, but it soothes my soul, it's lovely. It scratches the ADHD beautifully, there's so much happening as I scroll the UI. But yeah, I'm not hugely far in, I'm maybe 2-3 hours. It's gotten its hooks in me real quick. For a month where I really don't have time to wedge a big RPG in, I've got shit going on this month. I don't have time for a big RPG. And yet, I kind of need to try. And I've started now, and I'm like, well, I've got like a few weeks before Dragon Age comes out. I can definitely blitz through a 60-hour RPG.
Good luck.
Thanks.
I'm sure you'll be fine.
We'll see how it goes. What about you? You been playing anything else this week?
I've been playing a game called The Last Stand Aftermath.
Yeah, tell me about this.
This is a zombie survival, twin stick shooter kind of, with RPG mechanics. So you are someone who has been infected with the zombie virus, and for the sake of the community that you were living in, you have agreed to be like somebody who just goes out and does a bunch of like recon and trying to grab supplies. And when you die, they will send somebody to get the car that you have chucked all the supplies into.
Okay.
You can also, get documents and things from around the world, and that will gain you knowledge, and knowledge can be used to get permanent improvements for all of the characters that come after you. So it will be things like more stamina, or, more damage from particular type of weaponry, more room in your backpack. It's a really nice idea, and it progresses quite interestingly. It feels like initially it's not going to be super long. And then you get to where it seemed like the end was going to be, and it's like, oh no, there's a whole heck of a lot still to do, potentially. So, good luck! And, I've been having a really good time with it. I feel like I've played about 8 hours at this point, and I've just got through into the second area, and I'm sort of banging my head against trying to progress from there. You're doing that sort of Pacific Drive, picking from branching paths and moving on to the next area sort of thing. And some of the areas will have just like a mission for you to do. So you'll run and do the mission, and that will be permanently done from there on, but it might give you some sort of permanent benefit or some info about just plot stuff. Yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I think it does a really interesting job, and I've been feeling for something a bit sort of lightweight and weird. My only real problem with it is it does not run on Steam Deck at all.
Oh no.
Ooh, and furthermore, yes.
Does it just not open?
I don't know. It's just where if you look at it on Steam Deck, it's like this is rated the circle with the line through it. This is just a no. Verboten. This is verboten.
Oh no.
But yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far, and I'm curious where it will go next. Yeah, it's I think it's part of a series from an old Newgrounds Armour Games Congregate style game of defend yourself against invading zombies, but obviously in a very different style. So enjoying it so far. What about you? Have you played anything else?
That's it for me really this week.
Well then,
time for this.
Yeah, I'm deeply concerned about this whole renewable energy thing. I realise there isn't much oil left in the ground, but I think we need to keep making as much money as possible while we just, burn the last of it.
Exactly. I don't want these renewables muscling in on our territory.
Indeed. So I'm thinking we need to find ways to discredit them that, if you don't think about too much, will sound very plausible.
Well, I've been brainstorming.
Right. What do you got?
You know, solar
Yeah.
takes heat from the sun.
Yes.
And we need the sun to keep the planet warm.
Yeah.
So you don't want to use solar energy because that'll suck up all the heat, and then the planet will get too cold and you don't like cold weather.
You see, I thought that initially as well, but then I was worried that they'll be saying, actually, that's gonna, because it's sucking up the heat, it'll stop the global, temperature rise that they're also concerned about. So what I came up with instead is it's sucking solar energy directly towards the Earth every time you build more solar panels, and that's what's warming the planet up. It's actually not us. It's not us creating the problem with oil and gas and coal. It is, in fact, the solar panels redirecting all the heat and radiation towards us.
How's about this? There are growing numbers of tornadoes and things happening in the world.
Yeah.
What if they're being caused by wind turbines and windmills because they're taking the perfectly normal air and spinning it around in a circle? If the air is turning the turbine, that means the air's getting spun up into a swirly swirl.
Yeah,
exactly, swirly swirly. That's what's making all the swirly air.
Well, I mean, there has been a lot more of that recently.
Right? I think that sort of tracks if you don't think about it too much.
Incredibly plausible, and I think we might be onto something here, and I think we're ready to go forward and just nice, safe coal. Everyone have nice, safe coal instead of those solar panels. I heard they fall on sheep, and you like sheep, don't you?
If we have too many of them, maybe it'll be sort of like a helicopter, and the whole country will just take off.
Yeah, well,
you might end up somewhere else, somewhere foreign.
Yeah. I wouldn't want that. No.
Okay, we're getting reports in of a knock.
An injury? Where's it at? Where's it at?
It seems like quite a serious knock down by the knee. I'm thinking, are we going for a bruise for that? Just a little bruise for that?
We could do. Should we throw darts at the board, see what to make it today? I'll be honest, I'm rooting for broken bone if I'm honest with myself, but let's see what we get.
Oh, absolutely nothing.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a real big whack, but I guess no response. It's all good.
Okay, I've got just gone swimming. For this one, I've got something very special planned. Just a series of tiny little bruises about the size of a pokey finger. Like someone's just poked them in the leg.
Oh, fascinating.
I'll be really fucking confused.
That would be baffling, yeah.
Okay, we've all... here we go. Here it comes, everybody. Lightly tapping the foot on a stair while walking up the steps.
Right now, nothing.
Right.
Like an hour from now, agony.
Agony.
Yeah.
Agony, do you think something major, or just...
I don't know.
Major and it doesn't... Agony but doesn't lead to anything, or are we talking like a hospital trip?
I'm thinking hospital trip, nothing that's going to take a long time to deal with, but just to be really inconvenient for a few days. Like a few days of real bad pain and awkwardness.
And missing out on some shit.
Exactly, yeah, just long enough to get in the way of things.
Okay, what about this? Walking through a doorway.
Nothing today. 10 years from now, that's going to be a real lingering injury.
That's going to be one of the cold weather ones.
You're going to feel the barometric pressure in that.
I love a cold weather injury.
Right.
So, what have you put in your eyes?
I put 2 films in my eyes this week.
You had a terrible week for film.
I wouldn't say terrible week for film. I had a fascinating time with films. I, this week, saw what I am calling Jokerlopolis. I saw Megalopolis, and then I saw Joker 2, Folie, Deux. And I'm going to have to work out how to talk about these films in non-spoiler terms, because the only things that feel like they do this film justice is to just talk about specific bullshit that happens in them. So, let's try and talk about Megalopolis first. Megalopolis is a 2.5-hour film that I was simultaneously, transfixed by. I couldn't look away, and utterly baffled by. The plot is did you know that ancient Rome was an empire that fell apart, right?
Yeah.
And America is sort of like an empire that might maybe be a little bit like Rome,
You
right?
can only hope.
And you know it's an apt metaphor because they have to do an opening crawl and narration telling you the two are quite similar, and then calling it Megalopolis a fable, so you really know it's a fable. It's set in America, but occasionally there'll be a chariot or someone speaking Latin because it's sort of like Rome.
Sort of like Rome.
It's sort of like Rome, you know.
But also modern and current, but also kind of like 1930s.
Yeah. So, Adam Driver plays a man who has discovered a revolutionary building material he's going to use to build Megalopolis, his future utopia city. And, no one believes his vision. It's an untested material, but he swears he's going to make the utopia of the future. And also, maybe he has the power to freeze time. Maybe that's literal, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a metaphor for the fact that great art can make it feel like time doesn't exist if you get engrossed in it enough.
Sure.
Maybe he can literally pause time.
Who could say?
And maybe the power to stop time means you can stop gravity, because gravity would need time to make you fall, so you can just fly if you have time-stopping powers, I guess?
Sure.
A whole lot of not much happens for 2.5 hours. It is 2.5 hours of light, it's political drama mixed in with, will his future city work? Is this future city gonna work? Is his romantic life gonna work? Is the politics gonna work?
Here's some terrible dialogue.
Here is Shia LaBeouf playing even more of a Nazi than the more Nazi version of Trump. I don't feel like this is spoilery to say. Shia LaBeouf plays what if Donald Trump literally had a swastika tattooed on his forehead. Like, that's the level of not being subtle this film is dealing with, is what if a populist figure trying to run for office was willing to use people's anger and resentment to, like, overthrow the political process, but also we've got literal Nazi symbols tattooed on people's foreheads to, like, make sure you know that they're fascists. Subtlety, I know. The dialogue in this film feels like they handed dialogue writing duties to different people for different scenes.
And they all use ChatGPT.
No, I don't know if it's even that. They didn't give them permission to read what had been written in the other scenes, so they didn't know what the tone was. Although you say that, it might have been ChatGPT written because, like...
You're entitled.
Look, I know... Yes, there is an exchange, and I'm going to try and explain it because I think it sums up this film's dialogue the best of anything I can point to, which is Adam Driver and a woman, and she's a non-white woman, and this is important to know for where this conversation is going to go. Adam Driver says something to the effect of, you think just because you went to medical school, you think that entitles you to my time? And she responds, entitles me? Entitles you? Entitles me? Entitles you? Entitles me? Baffling back and forth exchange of just saying the same words like 8 times before it goes back to Adam Driver, who then responds to, I don't think so. Instead, and he, like, bobs his neck back and forth and does, like, a click left, like, side to side and goes, get back to the club, girl, in a way that feels racist.
Yeah.
He puts an accent on and does a head bob to tell her to go back to the club in a way that I'm like, I don't understand nothing about your character implied that, like, you're meant to be the protagonist. I'm very confused what that was trying to convey. It's full of moments like this where it's like, the dialogue goes nowhere, and when it does go somewhere, it goes somewhere where it's like, the fuck did that add to the scene?
About 25 seconds.
Yeah. It's full of things like this. It's full of, like, characters just breaking out into, here's, like, a minute and a half of me quoting Hamlet. Like, like, I'm going to start doing the to be or not to be, that is the question speech, and then just keep going, and you'll be like, okay, surely this bit's where he's going to stop? No, he just keeps going with that whole soliloquy, huh?
Shakespeare's public domain, you see.
Yeah. There's a scene in which Adam Driver gets beaten up, and it's Adam Driver doing an interpretive dance in front of flashing coloured lights while he just wiggles his arms around like... It's voguing with a lot more arm.
Sure.
I couldn't look away. I cannot recommend. It feels like a film that the closest I could find to some kind of meaning in it is it feels like a film written by Francis Ford Coppola, the person behind The Godfather. Maybe has gotten a little high on his own supply, because what he's essentially made is a film about a creative who wants to do something elaborate and bold and risk-taking, and no one believes in his vision, and everyone thinks he's a fool, and no one sees how his genius creative art is really, like, literally magical, and people are going to try and stop you making your art, but ultimately you will prove them wrong. Your art is worth pursuing, and it'll all work out, and your art is actually great and world-changing. And it really feels like it feels like this is his self-insert. It feels like Adam Driver is meant to be Francis Ford Coppola telling everyone, fuck you, I'm a genius, and my art is magical, and you can't tell me I'm making something bad, because it'll get released, and then people will see it was amazing. And they did not see it was amazing.
They did not.
So that was Megalopolis. Let me try and explain Joker Folie à Deux. So, the first Joker film with Joaquin Phoenix is kind of a bit incelly. Like, for anyone who's not seen the first Joker, it's...
I haven't seen it.
The short version, man with a bad upbringing gets abused by some bullies on the subway and then decides to go be the Joker and, like, shoot a bunch of people on live TV and get arrested for it. Man gets pushed too far and snaps and shoots some people and gets arrested and is a little too obsessed with a woman who barely knows he exists. Joker Folie à Deux starts with this man, Arthur Fleck, the Joker, in prison for having shot a bunch of people on live TV.
What?
And it pitches itself as something that it's not. It pitches itself as a musical starring the Joker and Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn. It is barely a musical. It is much more a courtroom drama. It is... I'll start with the good bit. There is a gorgeous animated sequence at the start of this film that set me up with, like, too good an expectation of it. It is by far the best part of this film. It is a Looney Tunes-style animated short with no words about
15 minutes long.
A man fighting with his shadow over control of his own life. And it's like an interesting piece of artsy filmmaking that I thought was genuinely good. Unlike a lot of people, I was excited for the idea of this being a musical, because the first film took itself, like, very seriously, and I was ready for, like, a film about a man who was being caught for his crimes and is having a bit of a dissociative episode because he is in prison, and these musical numbers being his sort of elaborate escape from the mundanity of being stuck in prison and being on trial for crimes. And I was like, you've got Lady Gaga in, she's got a good voice, I'm excited for elaborate, even if they're, like, you know, fantasy in your head, imaginary musical numbers, I thought that could genuinely be quite good.
Yeah.
The problem with the musical numbers, there's like 2 or 3 songs in the full film that are exceptions to this, but most of the songs can be described best as a 13-year-old girl trying to record a song cover in her bedroom, but she's having to sort of mumble sing so that she doesn't wake her parents in the next room and get in trouble. It's a lot of, come on, get happy, it tears away, come on, get happy, from a judgment day. Most of the songs are sung like that. They're sung like they're afraid that it sounds like they didn't get permission to use the songs and are worried that if they sing them too loud, the lawyers will hear and sue them for using songs they didn't have permission to. Like, that's the vibe. But also, it's a jukebox musical, which for anyone unaware of the term means a musical that doesn't write its own unique original songs. It uses existing pop songs as its musical numbers.
Like a pantomime.
Yeah, like a pantomime. But the thing is, when you go see a pantomime, the thing about, like, jukebox musical selections for a pantomime is you pick songs that are, like, incredibly well known and probably not more than about 30 years old. Like, you know, today you'd go back to maybe the late 80s, or like the 80s and 90s, is about as far back as you'd go for pantomime jukebox picks.
Right.
This picks a lot of really old songs that I don't know how many of them I even know. Come on, get happy. Like, that's the one exception. It's the one in the trailer. It's the one you will know.
I feel like you knew Get Happy because it was the song Leland Palmer was singing after Laura was
Right,
killed in Twin
right,
Peaks.
yeah. The fact that he's fucking singing it in Twin Peaks gives you a sense of the age of that track. But there's a lot of them where, like, and it doesn't help that they're mumble singing, so I can't pick the melody up properly.
Yeah.
And they're, like, several lines into a song, and I'm like, what, do I know this one? Oh, that line, maybe I know this one, I'm not sure. But the problem on top of that is a jukebox musical has to really go out of its way to make sure that it is picking songs that aren't too much of a stretch for their relevance to the plot. And all of the songs in this, it's a real fucking stretch to connect them to what is happening in the plot. They're not progressing the plot, they're barely acknowledging something maybe sort of happening in a scene.
Yeah.
So, the musical numbers, really, really big missed opportunity. And again, without getting too much into the bigger plot of this film, one, amazingly, it, in my opinion, manages to be even more incel-coded than the first one.
Yeah, you were saying about how this sort of does something weird while trying to seemingly appear not doing the thing.
It sure does play into the idea that women don't like men who are nice in ways that are like kind of gross. I'm not opposed, like, without spoiling what this film's final act is, I'm not opposed structurally to what this film does with the Joker as a character. I am not opposed to the arc on paper that this character has. I think the big problem is that there is, like, two really good moments that could have been an emotional catalyst for the ending to happen. And both of them happen, and no emotional resolution happens, and then, like, half an hour later, a conclusion happens out of nowhere. If one of those two instigating moments had, like, been placed right next to that event happened and then character results happen straight away, I think the film could have worked. I think the film needed to be much shorter. I think it needed to lean way more into the musical aspect. I think it needed to have a better 1-2 punch of consequences into response to consequences. I think the ending is fucking hilarious in a way that, like, I don't dislike it, but I don't think they earned it. I think the film needed to be a better film to land the final minutes that it did.
Yeah, you were also saying something about how there were various points that would have made the ending land better, or bits of that ending land better.
Yeah, I think my ultimate feeling is they fumbled the emotional arc. But I think if they'd you know, had a better 1-2 punch of, like, the thing that's going to be the catalyst and the response had been closer together, I'd have gone out of that emotional arc being like, I believe this, I believe it more. And if I'd been more on board with that emotional moment, the final few minutes, I think, would have felt shocking rather than kind of funny. Like, I think there are the pieces of a film that could have been good here. I think that you could have put this film through, you know, a round of edits. You'd have had to catch early enough that you needed to make these musical numbers less how they are. I can see a world in which you could have made this a good film, but it instead was baffling and bizarre and a film that somehow manages to not be enjoyable either for people who liked the first film or for people who disliked the first film. It pushes far enough away from the first film to piss off people who liked it, but doesn't fully commit to the thing it's pushing away to become to be enjoyable for the people who were like, oh, actually, I'm kind of interested that you're pushing away and becoming something else. Oh, you actually didn't become that other thing. Yeah, that's Joker Folie à Deux. I sure did see a couple of films.
You sure did watch the shit out of that, huh?
Yeah, I did. What about you? What have you watched?
I watched a nearly hour-long dramatic reading of some Tumblr stories by Strange Eons. This is basically four or possibly 5 different Tumblr accounts being sort of converged together to tell a story of the Croaker, the Kermit the Frog Joker hybrid person-kin thing. I don't really understand it.
Yeah, someone pretending to be the Joker and Kermit the Frog and some sort of Holy Trinity-esque version of all of them.
While also fucking a Kermit the Frog plush.
A Kermit the Frog plush, yes.
Yes, who, we've seen stuff about the Croaker before.
Yeah.
In other weird writings of his, mostly seemingly erotic fiction.
Yeah.
About fucking a Muppet, while also having a dark, twisted Joker mind.
Yeah.
And this person seemingly ran away from home at the age of 22 to go and live with a My Chemical Romance vampire coven, which, spoilers, was basically having their brains go squishy because of black mold, and also a number of other issues.
Yeah.
Something about some sort of rot cult and a meat box, and eventually these 4 people living in a one-bedroom house, and maybe occasionally losing blanket privileges, and no one's allowed to cook Italian food. It's a wild, wild ride. Especially when they get, like, the Reddit thread of, I don't know what's going on with my neighbours, I need to call the housing association.
It is a work of interactive fiction that commits to the bit so hard. It commits to the building of a universe. And it is artistic. That is what it is.
I would be curious if any aspect of this was in any way true.
Oh no, I don't believe any of this. I think this is entirely one or a small group of people's elaborate creation. This is their weird little fan fiction they're writing in real time.
I think it was the posting things on an entirely separate blog that went maybe on Reddit rather than on Tumblr.
No, that's the thing that made me think that this is entirely fiction. It's the fact that they write it in a different way for Reddit so that it's not obvious it's the Tumblr fake story. They're writing it in a way that will be believable for an Am I the Arsehole thread to broaden the world building. I'm like, nah, that is not real, but I respect the hell out of your commitment to it.
It is a wild, wild story that just got more and more chaotic as the story went on. And hopefully no one got injured in the creation of the story. Yeah, I wouldn't spoil too much, but it does really seem like there's some stuff about quite controlling relationships.
Yeah.
Almost certainly abuse, the dangers of black mold, and what that can do to a mind. I can't think of anyone who, might be having a very weird time with black mold right now.
Who knows?
Maybe she was the head of the cult. No, this was set in America and not Scotland. What? I don't know what I'm
What are you on about?
What? Me? Never. No, wouldn't say a thing. Yeah, it was an hour-long reading of all of these different stories combined together in a bizarre and chaotic timeline.
It sure was.
I sure was almost completely speechless about how to explain my feelings on what I just watched in the immediate aftermath.
I don't know how vampires work.
I don't know how vampires
work.
I don't know. Maybe you can stab them with a stick.
I was pretty enthralled by this.
It was a wild adventure. What about you? Have you watched anything else?
That was the big ones for me, really. I did rewatch Yuri on Ice, the the ice skating anime.
Ice skating.
It's, for anyone who's not seen it, it's a sports anime. It's like 12 episodes long. It's about ice skating. It's very gay. I did discover something new I had not previously seen, called Yuri on Ice Welcome to the Madness, which is a 2.5 minute long skating routine that does not appear in the show itself, that is set to a very fast-paced rock track, and where most of the figure skating in Yuri on Ice is like very much realistic and grounded to real-world figure skating. This is not that. This routine involves, at one point, a character taking their glasses off and fucking throwing them 1,000 miles an hour at an audience member and hitting them in the head. Someone off to the side of the rink doing finger guns, and that, like, knocking the skater off their feet mid-routine. An incredibly quick jump up into the splits with their legs going almost up past their head and back down in a very quick motion. Fucking gorgeously animated.
Oh, yes.
Initially, my response to it was, why the fuck was this not in the show? This is amazing. And then I realised there's meant to be some tension in the final skating competition of the series about who will or won't win the big skating competition. If this had been this character's skating routine, there would have been no need for the scoring system. There would have been no need for, like, there would have been no dramatic tension about who was going to win. This would have clearly been the winner. No competition.
Yeah.
So they can't put it in. It's too good.
It's too good.
But I enjoyed discovering new skating to see.
Yeah.
What about you? You put anything else in your eyes?
That's pretty much it for me.
Well then, time for this.
Hey, Laura.
Yes?
We've got a new sponsor.
Who's our new sponsor?
Well, do you sometimes hear a lot of hype about movie Big Scary?
I mean,
Movie Big
yeah,
Scary.
I've had one recently that I feel
big
like
scariest.
I think they've been exaggerating a little recently how scary one of them is.
Did you? I mean, did you not hear that? Like, people were like, the whole auditorium was just full of vomit because everyone was sick.
The actor cried blood during filming. It was so violent.
So violent.
One of the camera operators, his head literally exploded because it was too violent.
Yeah, and then all the other camera operators had to go into therapy, and they're still there now.
Yep, and the film is like literally illegal to see unless you sign a waiver that says I'm okay with maybe shitting myself and my head exploding and me vomiting all at once because it's that violent.
Yeah, and when you get your popcorn, you get a packet of tissues, a sick bag, and a diaper.
I think there might be a little exaggeration involved in that.
Well, that's where this week's sponsor, isitactuallyscary.lol.net, comes in. It's user reviews for horror movies designed to tell you if the so violent poop people throw up at the premiere marketing is it just exaggerated bullshit or if it's realsies.
Oh, look, there's a little drop down so that all of those people who are vague posting about the opening scene that makes you throw up, you just click a little drop down. It'll tell you what the thing is that happens. So you know, is that a thing that would make me throw up or not? Probably not. I'll just put my hands behind my fingers if I need to.
It is that the audience was made to eat dairy, so you might shit yourself.
I don't know how they can enforce that in a screening, but it's good to know, honestly.
Especially if you're lactose intolerant. So is it actually scary, or is it just pooping yourself because you were forced to eat cheese that your body isn't ready for? .lol.net. Enter the code Q&PS 324 and you can have made them giving us money worth having done. Inside the boardroom of Supremacy Software.
Hi.
So, investor meeting coming up.
Right.
And
yeah. That's how we get money.
Exactly. But player numbers not up from last year. Line. We want the line to go up forever.
Yeah.
Infinite growth.
Right.
Growth not so infinite this year.
Right.
So we need to find ways to not lie to investors.
Right.
But just like nudge those numbers up through some creative accounting, I'm going to call it. So let me throw out this one to you to get started.
Sure. Yeah.
Our average players are like children living at home still. I know they're 18 games, but like, we know our audience.
We know.
And like the average household doesn't just have one child, it's got like 2 point something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like let's 2 point something, let's round it up to 3.
Yeah.
So every player we've got, that game probably has been seen by 2 other children in the house.
Seen by, yeah.
You know, and like seeing a game is basically the same as playing it. So I think we start by tripling the player count numbers, you know, just through that alone.
At least.
One little
And then
asterisk,
you
triple
could-
the number.
You could do that for every account on every console.
Exactly.
So if there's, 3 accounts on every console, then that's 9 people per household that are playing our games.
Exactly. And, you know how they say that, like, you're a different person today from yesterday, from tomorrow, that you're, like, a different person every day? Well, maybe it's a little greedy, but I'd like to start, multiplying the numbers by the number of days they've played the game, because they're a different person every day.
Every day. I mean, I heard that, some of your cells are being replaced every day, so you couldn't possibly be the same person,
so if
right?
they've done, like, a 30-day play streak, that's 30 times the number.
Right.
To me.
Right.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
We got one more. We got one more. We can do this.
I mean, most households probably have a pet of some kind, and, we could say that also counts as extra people. So I'm saying 5 people playing per account per day. I think that's probably closer to the number we want.
Oh, and that line, I got the boffins to crunch it while we were talking. It's directly up. That's an infinite line if I've ever seen one.
Correct.
Now, how we're going to top this next year, that's for next year to deal with. But
that's somebody else's problem, because we won't be us.
Exactly.
See?
You are a fucking genius.
I know. Am I still a genius, or is that 5 minutes ago?
You're always a genius.
So are you.
So, what have you put in your ears? You put many things in your ears.
I put some things in my ears. I have been listening to the music of Olafur Arnalds, who is a person making modern classical music.
Yeah.
With sort of electronic bits mixed in, but very light, gentle, dainty, intricate modern classical music.
Lots of intricate piano, violin.
Yeah, lots of instruments being played, like, very delicately, like, really, like, gradually over several minutes building up intensity very slowly.
And then, like, over the top adding, like, more synth-style beats.
Yeah, really, really interesting style. There's a track of his, I don't know the pronunciation of it, I'm gonna... The way it looks like, to say it phonetically, Le Josio, maybe like 10, 15 years ago, this one track I came across with a music video that was like drops of coloured ink being dropped into water. Lovely track, beautiful track. Had not really thought to go, I should go track down more of this person's music. So I had an evening where I watched a couple of lengthy live performances of him and a group of musicians.
Yeah.
One of which was Olafur Arnalds live from Haffacy in Ireland for Circle, which was like an hour-long set performed in like an Icelandic volcanic crater in the middle of nowhere. There's all these like big overhead drone shots of them just in the middle of nowhere and like one cable trailing off to nowhere. It's like, okay. And the other one I watched was live at Sydney Opera House, digital season. Both of those lovely sets. The one from Iceland is more of a just no interruptions, just like an hour plus of music. The one from Sydney Opera House, he sort of stops and talks about the music every now and then throughout, and he seems like a very sweet, soft man. There was one bit I remember in particular where, like, after like 1 or 2 songs, he's like, "So, I have been touring for very long, and I would like to go home now. Not right now. Don't worry, I will play the rest of the set, but I would like to go home and make new things. I've played too many things." I'm like, "Oh, soft gentleman, go home. It's okay, go home. Do finish the set, though." So yeah, those very good, gentle, just sitting and really soaking in some music tracks.
Yeah,
and
just a
sets.
sparkly little time listening to some tunes.
Exactly. What about you? What you been listening to?
Well, I didn't injure my foot, so I went out.
Yeah,
and-
I stayed home because I hurt my foot.
Oh, bliss. I went out and danced much of the night away until it became far too hot for any of that. It was very melty, but we had a lovely time. So, listening to, like, a lot of tracks I've probably mentioned on here a few times before. Of the ones I can remember, because I don't have a definitive list yet, that will probably be out in a week or so. The High Contrast Emotional Vampire, Kitten and the Hip, Relaxez-Vous, the Barton Baker remix, which is just a glorious bit of electro swing. Very upbeat, very swingy, good lyrics, and just amazing bass. Very much appreciate that. Good and wubby. High Tribe Music People. I can't remember which version, but I think it's probably the original. Age of Blood, Age of Love, LS Dream, High Vibrations, Fax, Kaleidoscope, Psycrane, Duality, Simon Farver and Ivan Black, Sway, Subfocus Vibration, brackets one more time, Prototypes, Oxygen, the Phoebes Mix, Wilkinson, Infinity, Mode Step and the Party Squad, Rainbow, one of your favourites.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit of Filthy Kicks, we had Beauty and the Beats, and a version of SANI I don't really know, it sounds like a live version. Good drum and bass there. Clean Air featuring Barrow Banton, the JFB remix. Always lovely to hear that out. It's very lively and builds and builds and builds and builds and builds. And yeah, that last like really hard drum and bass section is beautiful. If a little difficult to do when it's that hard. Talpa, Going Home, a little bit of Psytrance. And King of the Bongo, the Ed Solo version. There's loads more, I have no doubt, but those are the ones I can remember off the top of my head. Yeah, it was a lovely night out. It was far too fucking hot. I really don't know what could have been done to fix that. Maybe I need to take more fan things with me next time. But yeah, it was a really good night and got to listen to some lovely music.
Yay!
Is that everything you've listened to?
I think so.
Well then,
time for this.
Right. We need to redo our terms of service.
Right, yes.
We got too many women on our streaming platform. Showing too much skin, too much of the time.
Yes.
It's not fair to men. It's giving women an unfair competitive advantage.
Indeed. How can men hope to cope when there's all these women who just, they can just show a bit more skin or a bit more of their body, and the men can't do that. It's just somehow the women don't seem to go for that as much as the men, which I don't understand because, surely female gaze is as bad as male gaze.
Right. So I've been working on some clear, concise rules for women's bodies.
Oh, yes.
That are very, very easy to understand and with good rationale.
Yeah, it's very important that we make the rules about women's bodies.
Yes. So, first of all, no female-presenting hips.
Indeed, yes.
Except that you are allowed female-presenting hips if it's in a bikini.
Yes.
But only if your stream is at the beach.
Yes.
Or on a VTuber.
Yes.
But only a 3D one. No hips on a 2D one.
No. Couldn't have that.
I think that's a pretty good, simple, clean, concise place to start.
I strongly agree.
Do you have any suggestions?
Yes. What about then female presenting eyelashes?
Oh yeah, they in or out?
I think they're out. Generally speaking, out. And unless, of course, if you flutter them like a sexy cartoon. Because I'm...
Okay.
I do like that. But generally, female... Just
We'll tell you no, and then if you flutter them, maybe yes, actually.
Well, you have to have been fluttering them already. Otherwise, we'll have to chase you off, you see.
Okay,
Because therefore you've been a tease.
I am of the opinion, correct me if you disagree,
yes,
I think female-presenting feet, totally okay. No caveats on that, but I think those are just fine.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, what if there's bunions?
I mean, I don't want to give too much away about my personal preferences.
Well, no, I suppose not. All right, then.
What about female-presenting hands? Only allowed if one of the hands is holding a lipstick to remind you it's a girl.
Right. And what if they do like a little lips around like the thumb and where it joins to the hand, So it could be like a little mouth,
I think
maybe there could be some eyes on there as well. Hello, I am a female presenting female. I've got lipstick on. I'm a female presenting hand, being a female who is presenting the show.
I think that is acceptable, as long as the hand is used to blow a little kiss to the viewer. Exactly. I think these are good, sensible, normal rules.
Indeed. I am about to go off and start my own streaming career.
Oh, lovely.
As Shandy Handy. Shandy. Something like that, I think. She hasn't got any female presenting feet, I'm afraid. She's just a hand.
Oh, spoil sport.
With lips. Maybe I could draw some feet on, maybe.
So here we found two households living next door to each other. Obviously, we can tell here by the bone structures and the makeup here, we've got a man and a woman in each house, and therefore we would assume these are just some good neighbours, and they are clearly very, very, very close and friendly. Perhaps, they could have exchanged tools and things like that.
Are you sure there's not a more obvious explanation for that?
What were you thinking?
I mean, homosexuality, probably.
With this man and this woman living together, and that man and that woman living together.
Well, yes. Clearly, they swapped rooms briefly. But that's clearly meant to be a gay couple and a gay couple.
Right, you're suggesting a marriage of convenience.
Yes, probably.
It's very unorthodox.
They placed them next to each other so that it'd be easy to go see my partner. Go back to the marriage of convenience. You see.
Right. That's not really what we do in archaeology. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
What? Are you suggesting that sometimes you ignore very obvious homosexuality and suggest it's straight somehow?
No, never done that. Okay.
Then I would clearly not be doing the opposite here.
Okay, we think this is some kind of worship place. There were just a number of people here, seemingly of all ages and genders, and we think this might have been some sort of hall of worship, possibly some sort of church.
Gay pride parade.
Indoors.
Yes.
Sitting down.
Yes.
During a volcano.
Yes, gay pride parade.
Right. Okay.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong. LGBTQIA plus support group meeting.
Right. See, we were thinking just some sort of place of worship.
Worshipping the gay flag.
Which
probably
has dissolved over the years.
Yes, I'm glad you're seeing it.
Right. And this we think this might have been some sort of village hall, a gathering here. It seemed like there were a lot of the menfolk here. We assume that these were the warriors of this village, and they'd gather together perhaps to plan a hunt or some sort of raid on a neighbouring village.
Yes, but they were gay.
And there's no other explanation for this, you don't
Nope,
think?
There's no explanation other than gay.
This entire culture, entirely gay.
Yes.
Well, that would explain why they died out eventually, if every single one of them was gay, due to the lack of reproducing.
Hey, gays can do.
They can now, but this is...
I pointed at marriage of convenience earlier.
Oh, so you're saying that there was some bisexuality happening there, or at least some child of convenience?
I think that is conceivable for certain.
Okay, well, I'll get this paper written then, I suppose. Wasn't like this in the 80s.
Do you know what I want to see more of?
What do you want to see more of?
Social justice warriors.
Social justice warriors?
Yeah.
All right, Larry.
Right, Barry. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing my little best, mate. You doing okay?
Doing all right. I'm aware that Halloween's coming up in the near future.
Oh, yeah.
It's coming up, spooky season and all that.
Yeah.
I've been reminded of some discourse that does around every year or so around
Right,
it. You're aware of the blue bucket discourse?
No, is that like, like a Blue Cross sale or?
No. So this is a thing that I've seen it mostly popping up in America, where trick-or-treating culture is a bit more prevalent.
Yeah.
The idea that was floated several years ago and has been criticised ever since it was first brought up, but regardless has refused to sort of die out, is the idea that autistic children who, might not be up to the social aspects of interacting with someone at a doorstep, as part of trick or treat, should be made to carry around blue pumpkin buckets to signify this child is autistic and therefore should still be allowed some sweets at the door, even if they're, not particularly chatty or not doing eye contact or whatever.
Right.
And you can see how it was done with you can see how there was maybe a good intention behind it. But what it has sort of ultimately become, as it has become more sort of popularised and known as an idea, is the idea that autistic children, if they want to trick or treat, should be expected to out their disability visibly to anyone around them, and to wear a bold, easy to spot signifier of their disability. And that if they're not willing to carry around a colour-coded disability signifier, then it is okay for an adult at the doorway to go, you're being rude by not making eye contact and not talking, and you don't have a blue bucket, so as far as I'm concerned, you're not disabled. No sweets for you, child. Like, you can see the problem with it. It's clearly something that, probably had a good intention behind it, but ultimately is like, hey child, if you want a little bit of care and decency for the fact you might not act like other children, carry around your disability signifier, tell everyone you're disabled.
A label, wear a big label.
Wear your big blue thing that says, I'm not like the other children. Is the other children going to ask him why you got the blue bucket? And,
you could potentially then, end up them becoming a target for bullying in other ways.
Right. It potentially invites bullying. It, invites people at the door perhaps treating them differently than they otherwise would because, I recognise you've got a disability, I'm now going to infantilise you a bit, maybe. You shouldn't have to carry around a big thing that says, this is my disability, to, on a night that is about children being given sweets at the door, give a kid that's maybe not so talkative still some sweets at the door,
Yeah, it feels, I don't really understand the whole thing. I've tried to engage in trick-or-treating a couple of times for people. I bought big bags of candy around the time and then no one has come to the door. So I've ended up, with too much candy.
Yeah, it depends on communities entirely. I've lived places where it's been more common. I've lived places where years in a row will go and I've not seen a single human. But my understanding is it's a bit more common in America because it's one of the few times that walking distance, nothing's walking distance, but your neighbour's doors might be walking distance, and that sort of plays into it a bit. But yeah, if someone that's, for anyone that sees this popping up, like, I can see how at a glance you'd see it and go, oh, that's a good idea. Be aware of the problems with it,
Yeah. Oh, fancy young mate.
Oh, yeah.
Good hug, mate. Good hug.
Good luck.
Right, I think I'm going to have a little lie down.
Sounds like a plan. Lovely.
Nice.
So, you do things on the internet. Where can people find those things?
People can find the things I do on the internet at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere. Laura K. Buzz on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Patreon, that's the one that pays the bills, Blue Sky, Mastodon, all the places, Laura K. Buzz. Things I've got coming up. There's a video about accessibility stuff in the Until Dawn PS5 remake. Probably some other bits you'll hear about real soon. I got stuff happening. You'll know about it real soon.
And things.
Stuff and things. Ooh, imminent.
Oh.
What about you? Where are you at on the internet?
Well, I don't have unified branding, but I do have a link tree. It's linkter.ee/Janiac, JANEIAC. You can find the music I've made, the t-shirts I've designed, the things I've written. You can help support me at patreon.com/stonedmonkeyradio for as little as $1 a month. You can help get the show edited and other stuff too. I do streaming on Thursday nights, and yeah, that's pretty much it for me. So, Laura,
Yeah?
will you sing us out, please, darling?
Until next time, be a stranger.